words, the reason for that is that he's got antisocial features, but he doesn't have an antisocial personal disorder standing alone.
Correct.
Because if you look at him, you would have to have been, before age 15, you would have to show signs of 3 of 12 things, and he just didn't fit into that. Then I'm a sexual sadist.
Yes, but you see, you do have some sadistic features.
Oh,
still.
sure, I understand
Okay,
that.
okay.
But if I am doing what I am doing sexually for my own sexual arousal and I'm being sadistic about it, then I'm a paraphilic. I'm not a personality disordered person, correct?
But he may have some, let's call it, paraphilic features.
Okay.
Why not? That fit the personality disorder. I didn't exclude that. Indeed, today, if you remember, the last one was necrophilic.
We'll get to that.
feature. Okay, fine.
So it's clear, or did you believe that what he was doing, this business about this obsession with sex, was he doing it for his own arousal, or was he doing it to hurt people?
First of all, I would like to say he was not obsessed with sex. He was obsessed with the idea of possibly finding someone who would love him.
Okay. But
And with whom to have sex.
But he had
he was not just let's say, a non-affectionate situation.
Let me ask you this, Doc. Before he killed the Ambassador Hotel,
Yeah.
he was doing a lot of sexual things. He was going to bathhouses. He was drugging people and having sex with them. He was having consensual sexual liaison with men in motels and hotels. He was going to porno places. He was doing a lot of things that one would say, this guy is a very active sexual kind of person, right?
Sure, normal people, average people would say he's a sexual maniac.
Sexual maniac.
Yeah, the vulgar term, let's say.
Right. One might say, I'll tell you, I don't know what this Jeffrey Dahmer's all about, but he's like a sexual maniac.
That's people would say that.
Sure,
But
okay.
meaning by that he's excessively into sexuality.
That's right. But
knowing Dahmer and what he told me, Jeffrey told me that the main reason was not just and only sex, was that he wanted to establish what he could not establish, actually, poor man, because he has this inability to really relate to people properly, because he's afraid of not being able to, and he's, at the same time he feels consciously and unconsciously rejected.
But when you make your judgments about, you believe what he says and what your question about him, you certainly believed him when he said what you just told us, that
Sure.
he wanted a love partner.
I think so. I think
When
he
he was-
wanted a love partner.
When he was telling you that when he would drug these people in these bathhouses before he committed a murder, that he would have 3 orgasms during the period he was with them, that's a lot of activity, isn't it?
Depends. Depends, He's a
Okay.
young man, and I don't think we can draw that conclusion. There's a lot of activity for someone.
You know that he didn't go into the bathhouses until after 2 o'clock in the morning, didn't he?
I know that.
All right, so these sexual activities that were taking place between him and these people were after 2 in the morning and before, obviously, when he left the next day. I mean, you didn't stay there for days at a time,
Sure,
right? Okay.
sure.
All right. So I think it's clear that, and I appreciate you helping me out. You said he was like a sexual maniac. This is a person who wants a lot of sex. Wouldn't you say that?
Yeah, I would say that, but I would like to qualify if you allow me.
Please,
the
anything
fact
you want.
that he had so many, as he said, sexual contact does not even mean that he had sex. We have no basis to say he actually had it. But let's assume that he had it.
Okay.
Okay? Maybe he was not too potent anyway.
All right.
Who knows?
Sure. Okay.
So we don't know about that.
But you do agree that for him to have this sadistic feature, under your definitions in the psychiatric manual, that's sadistic features is really part of a personality disorder because it can't be sexual sadism, because sexual sadism is you're having sexual arousal for yourself by hurting people. So you never found him to be a sexual sadist, did you?
Sexual sadist, a pure sexual sadist?
Yeah.
No,
Okay,
no,
good.
yeah, no, never.
Now let's talk about his fetishes. It's my understanding that if you got a fetish, your fetish is towards a thing that you want to maintain or touch or feel, and it kind of overpowers you. You become, this is your object of your desires.
Not continuously, though. Not continuously. There are certain moments when I know many people who are fetishistic in behavior. They work, they do many things, they hold high positions in society. And for instance, I know one who is a man who wears a woman's stockings, you know. And he was a patient of mine, but he was an excellent individual. Otherwise, he had a high position and so on. So he was not always, acting upon this fetishistic drive.
Here's what your book says.
It's not my book. Not my book.
Well, these aren't my books.
Yeah, but
they govern my conduct.
This is not my book. This is a book that is used as a guide.
Okay,
please.
let's talk about your guidebook then.
Sure. Okay.
Your guidebook says 30281 fetishism. Over a period of at least 6 months, recurrent, intense sexual urges and sexually arousing fantasies involving the use of non-living objects by themselves is an example, female undergarments.
Yeah.
That the person has acted on these urges and is markedly distressed by them. That the fetishes are not only articles of female clothing used in cross-dressing, transvestic fetishism, or devices designed for the purpose of tactile genital stimulation, for an example, a vibrator.
Yeah.
Now, is it your claim that Jeffrey Dahmer fits within this fetishism?
My claim is that it's more than that. That the original fetishism described by Kraft Ebing, that is recognized as has been the greatest authority in this kind of psychopathy, is that fetish is primarily a part of the human body.
Okay. But let's not talk about that, gentlemen. Let's talk about your guidebook.
My guidebook is, I cannot follow that way because my guidebook is a guidebook. It's up to me to decide what I think is going on.
But I just read to you what the guidebook says is a fetish. Would Jeffrey Dahmer fit within that definition?
Not that definition, because I don't think Jeffrey Dahmer ever used any garments, men or women garments. He used parts of a man's body.
The person that I just read about in the definition in the guidebook, that would be somebody who is suffering a paraphilic disorder of fetishism, right?
I don't know. What page is
283,
that?
Doctor.
283?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
It's under sexual disorders, I think. 283, sir.
Here, fetishism.
Isn't that in the chapter on sexual disorders?
302.81, fetishism?
Yes, sir.
And it is a sexual disorder. You see, my feeling is this, that I didn't read it, I will.
No.
That one cannot cut the individual as you cut a piece of a pie, let's say 10 pieces, 5 pieces, and so on.
Sure.
The individual is more complex.
I understand.
And I believe that the idea of talking about sexual deviation per se doesn't mean anything, because an individual is, first of all, a personality in action with many facets.
Of course.
Okay?
Of course.
So to take just a behavioral manifestation of this person and to call him as they do, because I grant you that they do say that.
Okay.
They do say that. I think is not fair.
Fine. That's
we are
fine.
much more than just fetishism or this or that. We are people.
But
That's what.
the guidebook says that if you fall into the category of having this sexual disorder, you're paraphilic.
The
Doesn't it?
guidebook, yes. The guidebook, yes. But
Right.
even Mao Zedong book used to say many things. I don't believe everything that is there.
Okay, good deal.
The way it's described.
I understand. Next question. If I were to read
Yeah.
what the guidebook says
Okay, good.
about personality disorders, where you, by your words, have classified Jeffrey Dahmer in 30190, they never use necrophilia as a part of a personality disorder, do they?
Correct. That's why I say necrophilic features.
Features.
Features. We have to define what we mean by features.
Let's assume that you came to the conclusion that Jeffrey Dahmer was having recurrent, intense sexual urges and sexually arousing fantasies involving having sex with dead bodies. Let's assume that you make that.
No, I don't make it.
No, I didn't ask you that. I said
Okay.
assume that you did. Would he then be a necrophiliac under the sexual disorders of paraphilia?
If Jeffrey Dahmer would go around and, let's say, thinking continuously and only about that, I would say that he's a necrophilic, but not otherwise. Jeffrey Dahmer is a personality in action. Jeffrey Dahmer, I think we do a disservice to Jeffrey Dahmer in calling him this, that. Jeffrey Dahmer is a human being who is who has a tremendous number of internal intrapsychic conflicts. He's a person who suffers and so on. And to take away from him his own personality by saying he's a necrophiliac or what would you say, just a fetishistic guy, I think we do a disservice. This man is much more.
He's
than
much
that.
more, as you just told us.
Yeah.
What he is he's obsessive compulsive. He has features of being obsessive compulsive,
Say so, yes.
but
Yes.
not in and of themselves. In other words, as a doctor, you can't say, I found the disorder of obsessive compulsive in him, because there aren't enough features there to make it stand alone, right?
There are not enough features, but even without my looking and describing along the guidebook, I would say, for me, he is not. I've seen many obsessive compulsive. He does not have he does not manifest himself as an obsessive compulsive disorder.
So what we have done then is we have found that what you've said is, instead of saying he's just necrophiliac or fetishistic, you're saying a creature Jeffrey Dahmer is a whole bunch of things, and part of his personality is this, and this, and I find that therefore the only way I can categorize him using the guidebook is that he's a personality disorder not otherwise specified. Right?
Okay. Now,
Isn't that what you're saying?
Can I clarify?
Anything you want to do.
Very good. Now, let's talk about what is a personality.
Okay.
Okay. Then we go to Jeffrey Dahmer. A personality is a composite of a total persons that develops through the years when the growing individual happens to be in contact with his environment. All of us, so-called normal, let's say, have features of dependency. We have sadistic features at times when we're not too nice towards people that we do, we are with, we like, and so on. We have also fetishistic features, because when someone of our dear ones dies, what do we do? Certainly we don't have a sexual fetishism, but we try to embrace even the dead body because of the importance we give to this dead body. This person who was dear to us and died. And that goes along with the borderline personality. Borderline personality changes mood from depression to elation. We all have these kind of things, not to that degree though. We are a composite of many facets, and we become sick when these facets become exaggerated. And that is what is called personality disorder.
Fine.
Personality disorder, okay?
Okay, now, this book, 27, you have in front of you,
Yeah.
is called a Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders.
Sure.
Now, I don't want you to give me an off-the-cuff diagnosis, but assuming I'm normal, assuming I'm classified, if I come in and you say, how am I doing? You say, you're normal. I'm not in this book, am I?
Yeah, you are there.
What mental disorder would I have?
No mental disorder.
Oh,
you,
okay.
you know, you are a personality who has many facets. You are loving. You are a little bit sadistic at times, even in courtroom. You know what I'm saying? which is a normal thing because that's your job. You know.
You don't think I'm having sexual arousal?
I don't think so. Not that time. Not that time. Not that time. But you know, that's.
What I'm trying to say is, these are mental disorders. That's what the book's for.
These are mental disorders.
Yeah.
And these are
Sure.
the disorders that for many years we've been calling neurotic disorders or character disorders, personality disorder. These have nothing to do with psychotic disorders. The old classification that you still see here, because if you look into, I'll show you, this kind of thing is under personality disorder and non-psychotic disorders.
Sure.
The heading.
Oh, I understand.
You know, the guide, your guide, is telling you that.
My guide, based upon what you're saying, says that none of these are psychotic.
No,
I agree with that.
Non-psychotic.
But my guide says that if he has certain traits that rise to a certain level, it is not a personality disorder, it's a sexual disorder. And you're saying he does not suffer from a sexual disorder.
He suffers from a mixed personality disorder with many different features that form this personality, the total personality of Dahmer.
But no single sexual disorder.
No single feature takes over as a distinct entity.
Is what he has. First of all, I think you said, and correct me if I'm wrong,
Sure.
that what Mr. Dahmer is suffering from is a worse illness than schizophrenia.
Oh,
Did you say that?
Yes, I still, yes, because I've seen thousands of schizophrenics, and no one of them has performed in the manner of Jeffrey Dahmer, killing 17 people.
Have you ever been involved in a case where you were called upon to testify as to the mental, I'll strike that, as to the mental issue in a courtroom where the question of the person's mental disease was a sexual disorder? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, but it's a part of the total personality. You know, in a sense, I've seen a lot of people who say are sexually disordered, and they have also a total personality plus the sexual disorder.
Have you ever found?
I have, yes.
Have you ever found that a person? Is it okay if I stand here, Judge, or should I go back? I'll go back. Have you ever found a person who had a sexual disorder
Yeah.
to be mentally ill?
A sexual disorder, to be mentally ill? Yes.
How many such people have you?
I would say I can't tell you how many such people, but I would say that, for instance, maybe 3% of the sexual disorder, indeed, 3% of the paraphilias may be psychotic.
Okay.
But I don't think Mr. Dahmer is psychotic.
Fine. So 3% of the paraphilics might be mentally ill.
I'm saying, excuse me, I correct, necrophilics, as you say.
Have you dealt with necrophilics before?
No.
First-
It's such a rare thing.
Yeah, sure.
That is, I didn't have I even discussed this kind of thing with other people, excellent criminologists all over America and Europe, and They have not seen any in their life, and people have been professionally engaged in criminology for 40 years. And we have very few cases. So
How about Dr. Resnick in Cleveland? Did you talk to him?
no, I didn't talk to him. No.
Tell me if Jeffrey Dahmer, whatever he was, personality or otherwise,
Yeah.
take it the way you said it, whether or not that in any way affected his mental or emotional processes as he was going along this track of finding people and killing them.
I think that whatever he was doing was a consequence of his own disordered self.
I understand that.
See,
But when he was doing it, accepting the disorder that you tagged on him,
Yeah.
was that affecting his mental and emotional processes
To what degree? I don't know.
that caused him to continue doing it?
No.
All right.
No.
Is it your testimony, Dr.
Sure.
Palermo, that after Jeffrey Dahmer committed his 5th murder or 7th murder, that he could have said, enough, no more, and never done it again without treatment?
Let me say this. I would say that he could have said, and I'll tell you why. Because after when he was before the judge for this
Other one.
otherwise, as he was able to lie and not tell the truth to the judge and to you, Mr. Boyle, he would have been able to exercise the same power and tell the truth. So he was in command.
He was a liar.
Well, I don't know if
Lie.
liar, I don't want to go, but he was in command of the situation.
But he was
could
lying.
have said it or not.
He was lying. Wasn't he lying to his probation officer? Didn't he lie to the judge, his lawyer, his family? He was lying all the time.
Yeah, but
Isn't that
let's
true?
call it lying. Yeah, I would say lying.
I mean,
yes.
he is telling untruths because he wants to achieve something. Isn't that why we lie? To achieve something or to deny something?
Yeah, I would say that he was, I would say he was lying, yes. Yeah, but not, that he was lying, yes.
But doctor, just before he was going to jail to serve his sentence, just before,
Yeah,
he went and killed again, right?
yeah.
And he took that poor man's skull and put it in his locker at work so that when he was out of the jail surrounding, he'd have this thing to look at. You agree?
Yes.
Now, my question is, knowing everything you know about him and believe him to have been, and everything that you said, accept it absolutely, on the 9th murder, whichever one that was,
Yeah, sure.
the next morning, was he able to get up that next morning and say, enough, I'm never going to do it again, and not do it again without treatment?
Without treatment?
Yes.
I think treatment comes after. He was able to say, I'm not going to do it again. I go for treatment and I report to somebody like he did before, and he didn't comply with the.
Oh, I know that. Now, let's see if I can't try the question.
Yeah.
Let's say that he gets up and says, enough, I'm not going to do it anymore. That's all he says. He gets up that next morning and said, that's enough. I've killed 10 people. It's terrible. I'm not going to do it anymore, ever again. Would he have killed again?
Would we killed again?
Yeah.
You're making you're asking me to make a prediction.
Hypothetical.
It's a different thing.
Yeah, hypothetical.
Would we kill again? I'll tell you. I think Jeffrey Dahmer is a dangerous person, and even though suffering from this kind of illness that I call mixed personality disorder, his problems are so deeply rooted that yes, he could say, I don't want to do anymore, and I will go for therapy, and the therapy will, even though the prognostics may be somewhat shaky, he would have been able to be helped somewhat, but I do not know whether he would, I wouldn't trust his behavior, honestly.
But if he doesn't go for any help at all, He's going to kill again, right?
He's going to kill again? I would say so.
Sure.
Yes, I would say so.
He would have to be put on some medicine to stop these urges he was having, wouldn't he?
I don't know. That is up to the doctor that will reevaluate him. I would say that he needs, and he deserves, because he's a young man, intensive therapy, physical therapy, or psychotherapy for a long time.
Now, you call it what he had an illness,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you've said that, whatever his illness was.
Yes, a personality disorder, mixed type, is an illness.
Right. Is it a mental illness?
These are semantics. The mental illness, it is a mental illness, but it's not classified under what is called psychosis.
I understand.
It's a neurosis.
There are two things.
Very serious, very serious.
There are two things that most all of us know we can and can't do. First of all, I know that it is wrong for me to come up and steal your wallet. I know that, correct? That's called cognitive, right?
Sure.
So knowing that, I can still walk up, knowing that, reach in and pull out your wallet and walk away with it. That's called volition.
Yes.
What part of Jeffrey Dahmer was this illness affecting? The cognitive or the volitional or neither?
As far as I know, from what I learned from Jeffrey Dahmer through the examination, Jeffrey Dahmer knew exactly what he was doing. He was planning whatever he did. He had taken precautions, very, very, I'd say, good ones. And he knew the consequences of his actions, but he did not want to stop it.
Okay, so the cognitive is out of the question, and now we're talking about the volitional. It's your testimony that with this illness, he could conform his conduct to the requirements of law.
Yes, yes.
But you have just said that if after the 10th killing, he woke up in the morning and said, that's it, no more, he would have killed again unless he got help in treatment.
But he was able to stop it like he did many other times before, because between the first homicide and the second, there was a lapse of many years. Many years. He decided not to do. Actually, he did not want to do it. When he was at his grandmother's, he refrained from doing anything like that, and he was, apparently told me, I was able to do it. That's it.
A few more questions.
Yeah, sure.
Is he an alcoholic?
What you say?
Jeffrey Dahmer an alcoholic?
Jeffrey Dahmer yes, he has been drinking for a long time, and increasingly so.
Would these murders have happened, in your opinion, based upon how you've diagnosed him, if he was a drinker or not?
Yes, he was drinking.
No,
Yes.
I say no. If he wasn't a drinker, let's say he never had a drink in his life, but he had that same problem that you have, that we've talked about, would he have still done this?
Would I still, sorry?
Would he have still done this?
Would I still done it?
Would he?
I think that he would have still done it, only that the alcohol facilitated, as he told me, this procedure.
But he still would have done it, whether he is...
I think so.
Now, without trivializing this, I don't even know why I try that word, it's a tough word. Without trying to make light of this, you're telling us that because he didn't kill between 1978 and 1987, that meant that he didn't have to kill, he wasn't being forced to kill by some kind of mental illness after 1987. Isn't that what you're saying?
No, I say that he was able, capable of refraining from doing whatever he did before, whatever was bothering him, to the point of not doing it.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
We all know and can relate to alcoholics. We either are one, or we've seen one, or we've been close to one, or we have a relative who's one. The alcoholic in question never quits drinking. Never. drinks himself to death. That's obviously a terrible thing. Forget about him. Forget about the alcoholic who's an alcoholic and stops drinking. Just stops drinking. Goes to AA, goes to a hospital, whatever, and stops drinking and doesn't have a drink for 10 years. And then all of a sudden starts drinking again. Is that person that I have just described a person who could still keep from drinking if they chose not to drink?
Yes, that's what the Alcoholic Anonymous says.
Oh. There's people that go to Alcoholics Anonymous who try very hard to stop drinking and fail, correct?
Oh, sure.
Sure. As a matter of fact, there are a lot of people who stop drinking and then they have a change in their life, like the death of their wife, and they start drinking again.
Yes.
So the fact that Jeffrey Dahmer quit killing people for 9 years doesn't mean, does it, that when he started up again, that he just said, I'm just going to start to kill. Is that what you're saying he did?
I never said
The
that.
bad question, I'll withdraw it.
No, okay.
When Jeffrey Dahmer started killing again, I'm not talking about the Ambassador Hotel. If you accept the fact, we'll strike that. Do you accept the fact that he has no recollection of that killing, or do you think he's embellishing that?
I think that he said that he was heavily drunk, and he didn't know how to explain to me what happened. He found this man at the Ambassador Hotel dead. He was lying on the body.
You believed him?
I believe him, yes.
Okay. You believed him about that?
Yeah, he said he drank so much that he does not remember.
Now, the next person he killed, the very next person he killed, do you believe that he, at that time, made the conscious choice to kill, or do you believe that he gave in to this strong sexual desire to have a dead body with him?
I honestly, I do feel that if he would have wanted, he could have stopped
So when
the action, really.
Did he say to you, as he said to the other two doctors,
No.
he just threw in the towel, he knew it was all over after the Ambassador Hotel, he couldn't stop himself anymore, the urges were too strong? Did you believe him when he said that?
The urges were too strong, yes.
You didn't believe him?
Yes, I believed him. So what? But the urges are too strong. I too have some urges, very strong at times, but I control it.
But you're talking here, as you have testified to, about a person the likes of which nobody has ever heard of before, correct?
But we heard before, but I did not examine anybody who killed so many people.
But you've been looking into it.
Sure.
But doctor, you can't equate a person like Jeffrey Dahmer with the normal person who says, I'm not going to go rob a bank tomorrow because I have the power to say no. This is a one in how many million kind of human being, right?
It's a very rare
Sure.
type of personality, yes.
And that person, in all of which he's done, in all of the horror that we've heard, and you saw the pictures, didn't you, the police department show?
Yes, I've seen.
And all of that grotesqueness that we've seen, and all the things he's done, you say that that's a personality disorder, not a mental illness.
That is a personality disorder, so serious that it could be thought of even worse than a psychotic disorder. But he's not psychotic.
But it's,
This is different because he knew what he was doing, he continued to do it, he prepared whatever he was doing meticulously so. He was naked when he was doing what he was doing to these people just because he didn't want to spot with the blood his own clothing. You know, he knew what he was doing.
was it an impairment of his mind?
Was not impaired in his mind. He did a good job, unfortunately.
Right, now,
We know that.
you seem to, at least from what I hear you say,
Yeah.
is that because you don't see a psychosis, he's not mentally ill.
No, because I don't see Not I don't see, because I see Dahmer there. There's a young man, but
You know what I meant by
don't
that.
think he's
You don't
psychotic after I examine him.
I'm sorry, Doctor.
Yeah, sure.
I interrupted you, and I didn't mean to. What I'm
Yeah.
saying is, when I say you see Dahmer, I'm not talking about physically seeing him.
Yeah.
I'm talking about seeing him psychiatrically. After seeing him, you did not see any of the signs that you normally see in patients who have fallen into a category called psychosis.
Yes, because usually these people, even though they might partially recover, they show some signs of the chronic illness that a psychosis usually is, except for a manic depressive psychosis that is a different thing.
So because that's all in this guidebook, isn't it, what you just said about psychosis, right?
It's even there.
Because he's not in there, you can't say he's got a mental
No, please, don't tell me.
Okay.
Because I do not follow this book. I follow this book, you know why? Only to classify people, because there are numbers here. Because this is a requirements of the hospital routine. Otherwise, I will never follow this book, because I don't think that it's very difficult to fit people into these categories. You see, that's why I say in my report that I don't believe that this behavior was actually sexually necrophilic stimulated. I think it was, we are dealing with a young man who has a pent-up aggression within himself, and all of a sudden this aggression, let's say, erupts.
Okay.
Actually, if you want to hear what is my interpretation of the whole thing, I can tell you. I believe that Jeffrey Dahmer killed these people eventually because he wanted to kill the source of his homosexual attraction. By doing that, he would kill what bothered him. That's my interpretation, the dynamic interpretation.
Doctor, what you're saying is he hated his homosexuality.
Correct. He didn't know how to deal with that.
And when he was killing these people, even though he told you he was certain some of them weren't gay, he told you that.
But the majority, you see, some were not gay, but some were very good looking, and they were muscular and so on. And
So what he was doing was killing the body parts and keeping trophies.
yes.
And when he tells you that he was doing what he was doing in order to make a shrine, you didn't believe him.
I didn't believe him. I didn't believe in the shrine idea. I believe that he kept the body parts and so on as a trophy, as a symbolic fetish. I believe that.
Okay.
Yeah, but
And that person who did that was not mentally diseased.
he was suffering from a very serious, and he's still suffering, mixed personality disorder, which is not classified as psychosis or mental illness in the accepted terminology of our time.
You agree, do you not? We're almost at the end.
Yeah, that's
You agree that there can be sexual disorders of a paraphilic nature that can be so bad in a human being that they can rise to the level of mental disease. You believe that, don't you?
I believe that there are paraphilic manifestations on top of a personality disorder, very serious personality disorder, that together with the personality disorder, indeed the paraphilias that in some of the papers I read, quite a few papers, may achieve degrees of psychosis, but it is the personality that is psychotic. The paraphilia is a manifestation.
Okay.
Now we have, for instance, you remember these the idea of the vampires, werewolves, and all these kind of things. It was Bela Lugosi was portraying this kind of thing on television. These are a little bit of exaggerations, and
Sure. I want to just check with a few, and then we'll start here.
Yeah. I think what he said that I got to look at my report. Excuse me.
Sure. Take whatever
Yeah,
time
sure,
you need.
sure. No, just a second. I think what he said was referring to the entirety of his of this happening. You know,
But he never said I enjoyed killing people. He never told you that.
he said no. He said that he enjoyed logical. You know, he enjoyed sex with his people.
Okay.
He enjoyed sex with his people.
Okay,
Yes.
sure, but, you know, that was a means to an end, the killing. He didn't say, I want to kill him.
No.
Okay.
I don't believe that he actually he killed.
Yeah,
You
but he
know,
didn't
killed.
enjoy
He
it.
made the choice to kill, but you know that's not the primary gratification. I don't think.
I think we cleared it up. I just wanted to make sure, because
Sure.
we thought you quoted him as saying that he enjoyed the killing. He's never admitted to enjoying the killing.
No.
Did he ever tell you that he felt remorse?
I would say that he didn't. He said, "I'm sorry that it happened. I like to make, if I remember well, amends in some way. I know that I did a terrible things,
Sure.
and I had to pay for it." That's what he said.
Didn't he express the fact that he hurt a lot of other people, including all the victims' families?
Sure, he did, and yes, he did say that. He did say that.
What about this business about, you used something, in, at least I thought you did, about black people. He never said that he was afraid of them. What he said was that he's afraid what might happen to him after, but he never said he's afraid of anybody of any certain race, color, creed, did he?
No. He's afraid. No, he said specifically that he was afraid. That's why there was a little bit of paranoid thinking that we cleared with him, Dr. Friedman and I. And he said, you know, I am in jail, in prison, and the majority of the prisoners are black, and I'm afraid that they do me in.
He's talking about the future, though.
The future and the present now.
Yeah, that's
now.
right. I mean,
now.
because well, he's
Before this, the incarceration, no.
Yeah.
He was not afraid of blacks.
No. And as a matter of fact, that what he told you is he'd been hearing things said in jail about, he hear people taunting him.
Sure, taunting him.
Sure,
Yes,
okay.
oh sure.
He rarely ever had consensual anal sex at the bathhouses. He always put him to sleep before he would do that.
No, not always. No.
At the beginning, he had it.
At the beginning he had it,
Yeah.
but he had it most of the times. And see, I believe, and I'm quite sure that he told me that, actually I have a note, that he began to use this potion in order to escape from the bathhouse while they were asleep.
Sure.
Because he didn't want them to perform on him, you know, the same anal intercourse that he did on them. So it was a
Promise you.
maneuver,
3 more questions.
even for.
When he lived with his grandmother, he paid rent,
Correct.
he did the chores,
So he told me, yes.
he wasn't freeloading, was he?
No, not at all.
What was your understanding of his ultimate gratification? Your understanding of what he told you as to his ultimate gratification from all these killings?
From all this killing, where is it? You see, I'm not even a...
You'll know the Roman numerals.
Yeah, I know the Roman numeral, but I don't know where is it. This, well,
It's right at the front. It's about
oh, I see.
cautionary statement.
Cautionary statement, yeah, I have it.
All right, would you read that whole last paragraph?
Wait a sec.
You may read it.
Let me see where you are, because this is... it's already a confusing book, this.
I've got the cheap edition here. you read the last paragraph of that?
The purpose of DSM-3 R revised is to does not imply that the condition meets legal or other non-medical criteria for what constitutes mental disease, mental disorder, or mental disability. The clinical and scientific considerations involved in categorization of these conditions as mental disorders may not be wholly relevant to legal judgments, for example, that take into account such issues as individual responsibility, disability determination, and competency.
An individual responsibility is talking about conformity to the law, isn't it?
Correct.
Indeed, if one turns, would you turn to page 150 of the manual?
Oh, 150 of the manual. Okay.
Number 292, captioned nicotine-induced organic mental disorder.
Correct.
Are you familiar with that?
Yes, I'm familiar with
Would you read the second paragraph, the one that starts, the essential feature of this order?
The essential feature of this disorder is a characteristic withdrawal syndrome due to the abrupt cessation of or reduction in the use of nicotine-containing substances, e.g. Cigarettes, cigars, and pipes, chewing tobacco, or nicotine gum, that has been at least moderate in duration and amount. The syndrome includes craving for nicotine, irritability, frustration, or anger, anxiety, difficulty concentrating, restlessness, decreased heart rate, and increased appetite or weight gain.
And under the DSM manual, by their using their medical description, anybody really that's quit cigarettes recently is mentally disordered under this manual. Is that correct?
Yeah, that would be correct because it belongs to this diagnostic and statistical amount of mental disorders.
Obviously, no one would refer, no average citizen would refer to a person because they recently quit cigarette smoking would refer to that person as mentally disordered, would they?
That's correct. But you see, the fact is that most psychiatrists do not think that anxiety, for instance, is a mental disorder. The differentiation is between mental disorders and really mental illness. This is the mental illness are the psychosis, the mental disorders, many of them are the psychoneurosis, the neurosis, and so on, the personality disorder.
So that one, and you've been how many years practicing psychiatry?
Many years, maybe, let's see, 30 years almost.
All right, when you come in, and all those years you've conscientiously practiced it, have you not?
Yes, I think so.
And when you received this assignment from the judge, did you have a partisan feeling for the defense or the prosecution?
Not at all.
You were asked by the judge, come in with the most honest opinion that you can. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's what you took as your responsibility.
Yes.
And you were honest enough to say to the jury that, like everybody else, you read about it and thought, this guy must be crazy.
Correct.
You actually entered into it with kind of a bias, figuring he must be crazy for what he's done.
Correct.
A gut level type of thing. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
When you came in, did you come in thinking, after 30 years of experience, well, I'll see what this book is going to tell me what I should call this?
Not at all.
Is that how an experienced person that's practiced for some 30 years?
I would never make my diagnosis on this. I use it because in hospitals it is necessary to categorize this kind of illnesses. I believe they do it for insurance purposes.
And when you're going to come into a court of law, you're going to look at it, find the exact numbers that basically describe the problem that you think the particular individual has, if any. Is that correct?
Correct.
Does this manual dictate to you what your decision should be?
Not at all.
Of course not. You draw on your experience through the years,
Not at all.
your contact, you've had contact with paraphilias, you've treated them before, is that correct?
Correct.
And the issue that's before this court is the issue first, did he know right from wrong?
He did.
Do you know every psychiatrist has said yes, he knew, that I know of at least, that's going to testify or has testified, that he knew right from wrong. There's no question about that, is there?
No question.
And that you learned that in visiting with him in a relatively short time, didn't you?
Yes.
Is he coherent in his speech?
Yes.
Is he can catatonic stupor?
Not at all.
Is there a racing of thoughts?
No.
Is there any hallucinations?
No.
Does he talk about command voices telling him to go out and kill somebody?
Not at all.
In terms of the conformity to the law, that's one of the reasons you interviewed him at length, did you not?
Correct.
And you were checking to see whether that he was capable of such conformity, did you not?
Yes, I did.
And you evaluate that by the various things that he has done, do you not?
Correct.
He talked to you about did you discuss with him the Hicks case that occurred in the summer of 1978?
Yes, I did.
And that he slew a man at that time?
Correct.
The psychiatrist that testified, Dr. Wallstrom, yesterday said that Dahmer told him that he knew he could choose on that. He could make a choice, and he chose to kill him. Did he tell you the same thing? Did the same discussion ensue between you and Dahmer?
Questions. And I asked that he be told to ask the questions. I'll get all excited. I have the right to do that, and I'm doing it.
I'm speaking audibly, properly, and not improperly. I'm not badgering anybody.
I didn't say you're badgering.
I think the important thing is that in terms of what the objection you're raising is whether or not the witness is being intimidated. Do you feel intimidated, Doctor?
Not at all. No, it's a part of the...
I think that we're
it's a
getting
part
to the
of
point perhaps of being a little
cross-examination.
repetitious, Mr. McCann, so I would appreciate
No,
it.
it's a part
I
of
want to make a point.
cross-examination.
There's no question. All right. While he was in the military, from all reports that we know, he exercised the choice not to kill anybody, didn't he?
Yes.
And then he came back to the United States and went to Miami, didn't he?
Yes.
Now, you know, at Ohio State University, would there be hundreds, maybe thousands of men that would be attractive to a homosexual individual?
Yes.
Would you expect at the military that there would be thousands of young men through the period of time that would be attractive?
Correct.
And if a person couldn't control themselves and they wanted to kill someone, they'd have the opportunity to do it when they...
Oh, sure.
You went down to Miami, Florida, say from March of 81 to September of 81, 1981. Lived on Collins. Have you ever been down to Miami Beach?
Yes.
You know where Collins Avenue is?
No, I know.
It's near the beach, is it?
Oh, I see. Oh, I see.
Well, at any rate, he said he lived on the beach for a period of time. You would certainly see handsome, well-built, attractive young men, shirts off, on the beach in Florida, wouldn't you expect?
Well,
If you were staying there from March through September, one would assume you'd see thousands of people that met that description, wouldn't you?
I would say so.
By all reports, Mr. Dahmer chose not to kill any of those individuals. Is
I
that
think
correct?
so. I think so.
Then returned to Ohio, apparently from September to December, roughly of 1981. Did not know reports of him killing anybody during that time, obviously exercising some control. Is that correct?
I think so.
Then went to his grandmother's, December of 81, moved to West Allis, Wisconsin, and stayed there with the grandmother for a number of years. Is that correct?
Correct.
During several of those years, he exercised very strong control, did he not? Turned to religion, was influenced by his grandmother, and turned to religion, cut back substantially on any masturbation. Is that correct?
Correct.
Reports an incident at the library. Someone drops something in his lap, a homosexual suggestion. He decides then, over a period of time, at first he rejects it, then he's drawn back into it. Decides to go down. He may think it's right or wrong. You may think it's right or wrong. But the decision to go down to a porn shop or a bathhouse, that's his free decision, isn't it?
Correct.
Do you doubt for any minute that he was not freely deciding to do that?
Oh, sure. He was freely deciding that. Yes.
Start-
I may say he could escape from the bathhouse because that was not his house. He would leave the people there, drugged, and he was free. He
walk away.
He could not use the same method in his own house.
Because they'd wake up, you mean, and angry, and what'd you do to me, and so on.
Yes.
But there's, up to the Twomey thing, there's no report of him undertaking to kill anybody in the hotel. Isn't that correct?
Correct.
In the Twomey incident, whatever it was, whatever transpired, a death ensued. Isn't that true? He concealed the body in the suitcase and took it out to his grandmother's house. At that time, did he not?
Correct.
He then dismembered the body and got rid of it. Isn't that true? Is that true?
Correct.
At that point, he says to everyone, he made a decision, didn't he? To quit struggling against these inclinations, did he not?
Yes, he did.
that a choice he made?
I think so.
And that was a choice to yield now to whatever the inclinations were. Is that true? Is that true?
Correct.
After that, he started planning how he would kill people, did he not? He had been using the drugs in the Doc Stater case, the other cases. He starts now, in a number of these cases, to grind the drugs before he even goes out. Is that true?
Correct.
A conscious choice decision. Does that not evidence a conscious choice?
I believe so.
And he goes hunting. He looks for people without a car that meet his description. Is that true?
Correct.
And if the man has a car, he doesn't take him. He chooses not to take him. Isn't that true?
Correct.
Does that sound to you like a man who can't exercise choice? He just sees a body and he's got to do it?
No.
Or does it sound like a man who
No.
can say, no, I see the body, I'd like that guy, but I'm not going to do it?
Correct.
He's got a car.
He exercised choice.
I don't want to get caught, so I don't take a guy with a car. Does that sound like a choice to you?
He made a choice.
That sound like conforming to the law, deciding to conform to the law?
He decided not to conform.
And in selecting eventually the target, he makes the decision. He's got no car, he meets my requirements, I will take that one home. Is that correct?
Correct.
That sound like decision-making capacity to you?
I think he had decision-making.
Exercising control with that decision?
I would say so.
Takes the man home, sometimes has sex before, sometimes drugs him, and then have sex. Is that true?
Correct.
That's a decision he's exercising, isn't it?
I think so.
Control that he's exercising?
I think so.
And when he decides then he's going to do the man in for whatever reason it is, whether it's because he wants a dead body, or whether it's some, when you're looking into it, you ventured into the psychodynamics of whether it was which is a psychodynamic analysis, whether he's angry at the man because he's a homosexual or not. In any event, he decides to kill the man, whether that's the motivation, or whether it's to have a body there to continue.
Yes, whatever he decided to do.
According to what he says, if it's for sexual pleasure, it's a decision to kill a human being so that he can continue, if it's for sexual pleasure, to enjoy sexual pleasure. Is that true?
That's what he said, actually.
When he would put up to the house, mix the drugs and killed him, he had taken Guerrero out to the house, the grandmother's house, mixed the drugs and killed him. When he took Flowers out to the house, do you think, and had prepared the drug, do you think he had the intention of killing Mr. Flowers?
I would say so.
In any event, the grandmother somehow learned there was another man in the house, and Mr. Dahmer decided not to kill Mr. Flowers.
Mr. Flower was a big man also.
Yes.
He didn't want to, I think, if I remember, it was a little bit too much for him.
In any event, he exercised a decision after getting Flowers out to the house not to kill him. Is that correct?
Yeah. He also stole $80 from Mr. Flowers.
Yes. Do you think that's part of the paraphilia, that he would steal $80?
That's a part of psychopathy. That's a psychopath.
That's the antisocial personality,
Yeah, I would
isn't it?
say so.
That's part of the personality definition. It's a man that admitted that he stole $80 from him. Did he ever, in all the victims that he took, the 15, did he ever tell you that he took out the money from their wallets and mailed it back to the families from which they came?
No.
There's no doubt whatever he recovered, he threw out the clothing. He got rid of any evidence, but did he ever say he threw out their money?
No.
I'm not saying that's the
You
motive.
would not
but
expect him to do that.
Yeah.
It would be...
There were another time, we've referred to a juvenile as SS that was involved in the second-degree sexual assault.
Sure.
He drugged that young man, didn't he?
He did.
In his apartment, in Mr. Dahmer's apartment. Isn't that true?
Sure.
And then the young man got up to leave. Mr. Dahmer told the psychologist Becker that he didn't kill him because he had to go to work that day. Does that sound to you like a man that can't control himself?
No, he could control himself.
If he couldn't control himself, he'd proceed to kill that young man, wouldn't he? If he couldn't make a decision not to kill him.
Yeah.
There, another young man was he invited into the home. We're referring to that young man as LP. The jury heard about it during the testimony and in the confessional testimony. He let that man, according to Mr. Dahmer's statements, He attempted to hit him with a mallet. He was out of drugs, and he went out and got a mallet
Sure.
to render this young man unconscious with the apparent intent of killing him. Is that correct?
Correct.
When he hit him, the hammer didn't knock him out. A struggle or a discussion, a confrontation ensued. He eventually decided not to kill that young man, didn't he?
Correct.
And the young man even came back, and he didn't kill him. Is that true?
Correct.
Was that a freely made decision?
Yes.
Does that sound like a man out of control to you?
Not at all.
He went down to the bathhouses in Chicago, 90 and 91. He's visiting the bathhouses in Chicago. Says he drugged some of the men down there. Does he kill them after he's drugged them down there?
There? No.
Yeah. Does that sound to you like a man out of control?
Not at all.
He killed someone, Mr. Sears, on March 23rd, 1989. He was sentenced on May 23, 1989, to work release. You're familiar with work release, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
A person is released during their working hours, are they not?
Sure.
If a person wants to, instead of going to the factory, goes out into the street, picks a young man
Sure.
somewhere in a vulnerable place, can kill him, make love to a dead body, can't he? Is that correct?
Correct.
And yet Mr. Dahmer didn't kill anybody from the time he slew Mr. Sears on March 23, 1989, until May 20 of 1990, when he killed Mr. Smith, Mr. Ray Smith. Is that correct? That's 14 months, isn't it? It's just 3 days short of 14 months, isn't it?
Correct.
Does that sound to you like a man out of control?
I don't think so.
It's a man that decided he wasn't going to kill anybody during that time, didn't he? When you're killing people, in all your experience in psychiatry, does it get easier to do it every time you do some act?
Does it get easier?
Yes.
I would say so.
Do you become desensitized to killing people?
I would say so.
The first one would be very hard. Mr. Dahmer was quoted in the officer's statement as saying, Hicks, the first one, you never forget his name. That's Mr. Dahmer was talking to Officer Murphy. Do you understand what he's expressing by that?
Sure.
But as we went further on, he didn't know their names, did he?
But he told me that it was much easier, to do.
Much easier to do, because after you've killed the first one, it's easier to kill the second, is it not?
That's what he said to me.
And easier to kill the third, is it not? And if you're getting away with it, certainly there's a temptation, if you're enjoying it, to continue, isn't there?
In his case, but not...
There's no question that he did he not?
Yes.
Continue with that. He equipped his room, his residence, with special security, did he not?
Yes, he did.
Does that sound like planning and control to you?
Correct.
He lied to doctors to get the particular pill in advance, not just that day, in advance, as the evidence will show. Does that show planning and control to you?
Correct.
This isn't a man that feels an urge and just sucked in volitionally into it. He does his planning, doesn't he?
Correct.
And when he crunches the powder in advance before he goes out, as he did in some of the cases, that suggests control to you?
Control, yes.
And selecting, waiting until the bars start to close and the hubbub incident to the closing. That sound like control, waiting, selecting a target?
I would say so.
We've already talked about picking only men that don't have cars. Then taking a cab out, always getting out a couple of blocks from the house. That sound like control to you?
He was able to make decisions and control the situation.
Get him in the house and induce him to take a drink of the beverage. Is that correct?
Sure.
And then proceed to enjoy them if he wished sexually and eventually to kill them. Is that true?
Correct.
Always in his house, wasn't it? In his apartment.
Always.
With the exception of the Ambassador Hotel, where we don't really know exactly what happened. All of the other slayings were either in the parental home in Bath, Ohio, or in his apartment, or at the grandmother's home. Isn't that correct?
Correct.
Never so out of control that he grabbed a man and took him into a field and assaulted him. Is that correct?
Yes.
He controlled the environment. He selected the target. Isn't that true?
I think so.
already talked about this chart in the DSM to some extent,
Correct.
the DSM-3R, is that correct? In terms of the personality disorder, you looked it over and said, what's the dominant feature of this situation? Is that correct?
Correct.
You saw different aspects. You saw some sadism in it. Is that correct?
Yes, I did.
Is it a sadistic act to wrap your hands around a human being's neck and squeeze it for 5 minutes?
I would say so.
Most people think that's somewhat sadistic,
Oh, now.
but that isn't the dominant feature of this man, is it? That
No. There are many features, as I said before. And
Now, it's true, there are some doctors would testify, or would you say, some doctors say you have to be conscious to have a victim, others to have sadism. Some might say, no, you have to be alive to have sadism. Others may say, no, there are some doctors that you can be sadistic even after death.
sadistic is
Well,
the
I'm going to object to the form of that question. Unless there's a foundation laid for the doctor who's saying that you can be sadistic within the meaning that we're talking about after death. Unless that foundation's laid, I'm going to object to it, unless the doctor wants to tell us that doctors do say that, and then I'll withdraw the objection.
All right,
Can I?
drawing on your experience of 30 years,
Yeah.
reading, is there some differences among doctors in when they believe that sadism either stops with death or what? Would you just tell us the jury?
Sure. There is a difference between amongst doctors. You know, usually the person should be alive.
I think, I'm not sure, could you speak a little bit more into the mic?
Usually the person would be alive, and but I think for sadistic behavior, I intend a behavior which is infringing upon the liberty and the life of other people, and I carry that even further, even of a dead person. Is the act in itself makes a mutilation of a body is also sadistic in itself. No.
But basically, you looked at it, apparently saw, embrace that and go with it.
Correct. In other words, he's almost like saying he's an ambitious man. He's a man who wants to be ambitious, the man himself.
Now, in terms of going back to your earlier testimony, you spoke that as a resident, you became involved in some degree in a slaying case out in Colorado. Do you recollect that?
Correct. Because I spoke Italian and the man didn't speak any English.
All right. And so did you come in as an expert in that case, or did you come in as an interpreter?
No, I came in not as an expert, but not even as an interpreter, because I was a medical doctor already. I was a resident, so I voiced my own impression of what the individual was saying, and what he meant to say, and that's all. They asked me what diagnosis I thought he might have. I don't know how much importance they gave to that, but I was I was an important tool of the whole thing.
Because of your familiarity with Italian.
Correct. Because of the familiarity with the Italian, primarily.
Had this man been in your unit that you were working on at some point?
Correct.
Was that the defendant that was in the unit?
The defendant.
So you're what we call not an expert witness, but a direct witness. You were involved directly in his
Correct.
care.
Correct. I was not an expert witness. I was not a psychiatrist yet. No,
All right.
that's true.
So there's no question you were not, as a resident coming in. Would you feel that a person would be qualified, having completed their training less than 7 months before, to be qualified as an expert on a serial murder case?
And I'm going to object to that.
Sustained.
You're not suggesting that you came in as a resident and testified as an expert in a complex slaying case, are you?
Obviously not. I will never do that.
You mentioned that candidly that you thought he was crazy when you went over there, and that by the end of 4 hours you had formed some tentative conclusions on that. Is that
Crazy
correct?
in the common sense of the word.
Yes.
I mean, crazy in quotation, not crazy mentally ill. He said he must be crazy to do that. Right. And I was a little bit surprised that I didn't find that craziness that I thought he might have had.
So, and you said after 4 hours you had reached some tentative impressions. Is that correct?
Correct.
And before finalizing any decision, you gave it about 9.5 more hours. I think you said
Correct.
12.5 or 13.5. I've forgotten.
Correct. 13 and a half.
All right. So you added, after you got those initial impressions, you added 9.5 hours of additional.
Oh, sure. I had to make sure of that.
Because that's a complex consideration. Do you think in 4.5 hours you could have reached a definitive decision of talking with this man?
It's more complex than 4 hours, I would say. But you have after 4 hours, you have an idea what you may find ahead.
That was your tentative, but you felt
He was friendly. We talked. He was at ease, and I believe that is a part of his charming personality. I believe that is the personality that he used when he did what he did.
In other words, when he met men and lured them back to kill them at his house?
Mr. Dahmer has some kind of personal power, I have to say.
He does?
He does.
And you could feel that power being with him?
He comes out as, regardless what he's done, simpatico.
He does?
Yes.
And you felt he probably used that with respect to inducing these men to come with him to the house?
It could be.
Doctor, I want you to assume, you've given us your opinion with respect to the drilling, his first statement to the police was that he drilled in order to facilitate the cleaning out of the contents of the brain. And it's your belief that when he gave later statements of another purpose that he was, malingering or beginning to fabricate a defense? Is that...
I would say... okay, sorry. Go ahead. Okay, I would say that this is a possibility. You see, the difference between a general psychiatrist and a psychiatrist who does forensic work is the following. Both of them may be good people and capable doctors, but the forensic psychiatrist has to be alerted to the possibility of malingering in malingering, because malingering is a very common manifestation, and in our defendants, many of them malingered.
I want you to assume this. I'm going to ask you now to assume something. Assume that in fact he drilled in the fashion that he described, and assume further that they were alive at the time, the 4 individuals. And assume further that he ate portions, 2 times, 6 times, 10 times, a different number, of 2 of the person's bodies, 2 or 3. Would that have changed your formal assessment that you gave to the court?
Not at all. Not at all.
More than, as you said, a guide, right?
Correct.
Is there a better guide than that manual for psychiatrists?
Yes.
What's it called?
Willpower.
Okay. Is that
I think is important, really.
Is that in a book form, Willpower?
Is any what?
I asked you, is there a better guide in the form of a book?
Oh, I don't know.
You don't know of any other book that's better than that book?
I know there are many books in psychiatry that are much better than this, yes. But this is a very questionable book. You understand? The reason why this book came about is for us to communicate better with one another, understand. Right. But I believe that as you see, there are numbers. Each disease is number. I think this has to do with insurance companies, that they want to codify pay or not pay these and stuff. It's a very serious...
You see, doctor, you sent a letter to the judge saying what your diagnosis was.
I used to.
And you said it was 30190.
Yeah, correct.
And that's out of that book. So what am I supposed to ask you about except that?
That's a bad habit I have.
I don't know what else.
Yeah.
Wait, one point there. The question of willpower.
Yes.
There's been a many good person that had a problem that died because they just didn't have willpower, such as people who drank themselves to death, who smoked themselves to death, and who hung themselves to death because they just didn't have the internal ability to stop the thing that was causing them the problem. True?
I suppose it is true. At the same time, I have to say, if I can, that many years ago in Milwaukee, I had a patient who was a very famous individual, and he came to see me because he was depressed. And I said to him, doctor, why don't you take some pills? No, he had lost his wife about 2 months before. And no, I think he wanted to commit suicide. I said, doctor, here, this is my prescription. If you want to, I can put you in the hospital for a while, and then we'll see. Adamantly refused, but he took the prescription, and I thought he was going to take it. I gave him an appointment for next week. 4 weeks later, the medical examiner, the coroner, called me, and he was asking me if I knew this guy. I said, what happened? Because he was in the morgue. He had shot himself. So he had the willpower to kill himself, you see.
But some people take the pills that doctors give them to help them and overdose on those pills because they don't have the willpower to control what is causing them the distress. True?
But also they had the willpower to take the pill. You know, you can interpret the way you want it. You know, it's a very difficult thing.
One final question.
Yeah.
2 final questions. Young women that have anorexia,
Yeah.
do they all have the willpower to stop the problems that's causing them to suffer from anorexia?
As far as I know, behind anorexia there is a depressed person usually, and at times they do have the willpower to stop it. At times they don't.
Doctor, have you ever known anybody well that was well enough that you knew died from one of the things I've said because as hard as they tried, they just didn't make it? You've known people like that.
Yeah.
Haven't you?
Yes. Sure. But you know, the optimistic doctor would say he died because he did not believe in me. You see?
I understand.
Thank you.
I want to touch on the analogies. A man that continues to smoke and hurts himself, he has to answer for that. But a man that needs a cigarette and kills another man for a cigarette is in a very different position, isn't he?
Yes, I would say so.
A man that has an alcoholic problem and struggles with it, but chooses to hurt himself to continue doing it, has a problem. But a man that would go out and kill another human being for a drink is in a very different position, isn't he?
Correct.
And a woman that's suffering from anorexia, a difficult problem, that decides she'll continue to hurt herself if struggling with it, is very much in a different position than a person that goes out and kills to address their own problem, aren't they?
Sure.
That's a different decision to go out and take another human being's life than it is to decide to smoke a cigarette and hurt yourself, isn't it?
Sure. If one hurts himself without hurting other people, you know, it's up to him or to her, you know.
Thank you.
One last question.
Really?
There are people who are mentally sick, who hurt other people and don't have the willpower to keep from committing the act that hurts that other person. True?
I agree with you.
Thank you.
But those people are mentally sick, mentally ill.
Oh, I understand your position.
Okay, fine.
Sure.
Is this man such a man that Mr. Boyle described? The man who you spent all these hours examining. Is he such a man that couldn't stop himself from killing?
No, he could.
Thank you.
I'm not getting up.
You surrender? Okay.
Please.
Court's in recess.
Thank you.
Be seated, please.